there are books, and then there are books that act as a dark mirror. Plato's is one such text. It's not a treatise on utopia, but a blueprint for domination. Plato imagined a world ruled by reason, but demanded a terrifying price: rigid control over the masses. His ideas echo in power today: methods of control, noble lies, and shaping society's very core. Plato believed society functions best when a highly educated, rational elite rules over the masses. He argued that the average person is ruled by base emotions and desires. To achieve a peaceful, stable society, he proposed strict control methods: rigid social classes, intense censorship, and selective breeding. The three classes of society. Plato's question, "What is justice?" quickly becomes a blueprint for total control. We'll treat this ancient text as a field guide for power, dissecting its brutal effectiveness from the rigid three-class system to the myth of the metals. Censorship, dismantling families, and state-controlled breeding. These are tactics, not theories. Are we living Plato's dark dream today? Let's find out. Plato's vision of control began with fear, not of monsters, but of the crowd. He saw Athens fall from reason to mob rule and watched Socrates condemned by his peers. Ordinary citizens, swayed by emotion, silenced philosophy and unleashed chaos. For Plato, democracy was a disease. Only strict authority, imposed from above, could save the city from itself. His blueprint: cage the beast of the masses, tame it, harness it, and make it serve its masters. Plato's ship of state is a haunting analogy. A storm-tossed ship, its owner, the people, ignorant of navigation, while mutinous politicians fight for control. Only the true navigator, the philosopher, knows how to steer to safety, but he's mocked and ignored. Plato's message: rule belongs to those with knowledge, not popularity. It's a powerful argument for elite rule, one that blurs the line between wisdom and tyranny. Plato maps his political structure onto the human soul: reason, spirit, and appetite. Reason seeks truth, spirit enforces, and appetite craves pleasure. When appetite rules, chaos and misery follow. Self-control is internal dictatorship. Reason must rule. Plato's city mirrors the soul. Producers as appetite, auxiliaries as spirit, and philosopher-kings as reason. The philosopher-king is the brain, the masses, the stomach. Now the trap is set. If you accept Plato's premise that the masses are driven by appetite, then his logic is chilling. The masses must be controlled. They need a leash, not as punishment, but as a kindness. This is the core justification for the totalitarian structure of the Republic. Plato's fears led him to design the perfect cage, line it with gold, and call it a paradise. Plato compared society to the human soul, dividing humans into three specific groups based on their natural abilities. Plato's vision is a rigid society divided into three castes: gold, silver, and bronze. At the top, the guardians, philosopher-kings, rule with reason. These are the wise elite. They rule the city because they understand ultimate truth and justice. Below them, the auxiliaries, forged from silver, enforce and defend. These are the brave protectors. They enforce the rules of the philosopher-kings and defend the city. At the base, the producers, farmers, craftsmen sustain the state. Each class has its place. There is no crossing between them. This is Plato's machine, perfect unyielding order. These are the farmers, craftsmen and merchants. They make up the majority of the population. They provide the wealth and physical goods for the city. How do you make a population accept a rigid, unequal system? Plato's answer: not just force, but a story, a noble lie. Teach everyone they're born from the earth, their souls mixed with gold, silver or bronze. The rulers have gold, soldiers silver, workers bronze, each fulfilling their natural role. The myth makes inequality seem cosmic, so people police themselves, believing in their own place. Manufacturing consent is a theory created by thinkers Edward S. Herman and Noam Chomsky. It explains how corporate mass media, even in free societies, shapes public opinion. The media acts as a propaganda system by using 5 filters to promote elite interests, hide opposing views, and manufacture public obedience. Major news outlets are owned by massive profit-seeking corporations. The main goal of these companies is to make money and protect their wealth. News that threatens the profits or power of the parent company is rarely aired. Most newspapers and TV stations get their money from advertisers, not their readers. Media companies are essentially selling you, the audience, to advertisers. Therefore, the news must be surrounded by a consumer-friendly environment. Outlets avoid deep critiques of the status quo that might make the audience unhappy or less likely to buy things. News relies heavily on official sources. Journalists do not have time to be everywhere at once. They depend on press releases, government officials, and big business leaders. By constantly relying on power figures to define the facts, the media naturally adopts the viewpoint of the powerful. Flack means negative feedback, lawsuits or complaints used to punish media outlets. Powerful groups, like wealthy donors or political lobbyists, use flack to attack journalists who report stories they do not like. This intimidates the media and forces them to self-censor or apologize. This filter keeps the public afraid of an enemy. Historically, it was anti-communism, but it applies to any major threat to elite power. By framing the world as us versus them, the public is more easily persuaded to support government actions, wars, or spending. The myth of the metals doesn't just justify the class system. It builds walls between people, creating a powerful psychological and spiritual segregation. By teaching citizens their souls are made of different metals, Plato ensures true solidarity is impossible. This division is intentional, preventing unity and keeping each class isolated like cogs in a machine, never truly connected. The architecture of division is a concept that explains how buildings and cities are designed to physically separate groups of people. This can look like gated communities, border walls, or unequal zoning laws. These designs reflect and reinforce social and economic inequality. The noble lie doesn't just divide classes, it's the cement that binds the city together. By declaring all citizens are born of the earth, it forges a shared identity and channels loyalty to the state, not family. Obedience becomes virtue, dissent feels like betrayal. The myth transforms the state into a sacred home, making control feel like belonging. To keep everyone happy with their jobs and to prevent fighting, Socrates proposes teaching all citizens a foundational myth. Citizens are told they were born directly from the earth of their homeland, making every person related as brothers and sisters. The lie is meant to be beneficial to society, not malicious. Leaders tell it to prevent chaos and unite the public. By believing in a shared history and a common purpose, people feel a sense of loyalty to one another and their country. It is a narrative created by the ruling or intellectual class to guide the masses who may not have the time or ability to study complex truths. News crafts reality, stokes fear, and binds us in shared narratives, often making us more obedient than informed. Plato's Republic demands total control over culture. Art, poetry, and stories are seized, censored, and burned. The state bans tales of flawed heroes and rebellious gods, erasing anything that might inspire doubt or dissent. Citizens are left with a sterile world. No grief, no complexity, no freedom. Only state-approved myths. The censorship of culture happens when authorities or groups limit what art, books, or ideas people can see or make. It can be enforced by the state through laws and funding cuts, or by society through social pressure. Throughout history, this suppression restricts public access and forces artists to self-censor. Governments have long used their power to control cultural narratives. Historical examples include Nazi Germany's ban on degenerate art or the Soviet Union's requirement of state-approved socialist realism. This top-down control limits art to state propaganda while punishing or destroying independent voices. In modern democratic societies, state censorship often operates through defunding or legislation. For example, the state of Florida has restricted books regarding race, gender, and LGBTQ+ issues in schools, citing parental rights. State actors also attempt to cut off public funding for specific performances or exhibits deemed inappropriate or offensive, such as congressional pushback against indirect grants used for Andres Serrano's Piss Christ. Beyond government action, culture is heavily censored by peer-driven social movements. Often referred to as cancel culture, this dynamic relies on public outrage, social ostracism, and economic boycotts to punish creators or institutions for sharing views deemed harmful or non-inclusive. While advocates see this as a necessary way to hold powerful figures accountable, critics argue it can function as a form of grassroots censorship. The fear of public backlash can lead to self-censorship, where artists, museums, or publishers avoid tackling difficult subjects to protect their reputations or avoid losing their audiences. Plato saw music as a direct line to the soul, capable of bypassing reason and altering character. Uncontrolled melodies, he believed, were dangerous, stirring passions and undermining discipline. So Plato allowed only two kinds of music, the martial drum for soldiers and the calm lyre for philosophers. All other music was silenced, replaced by a single, unending tune of courage and control. Plato's guardians lose private life. No property, no family, only loyalty to the state. Their identity is abolished. The phrase, the abolition of the self, usually refers to the ultimate consequence of the abolition of man, a famous philosophical book by C.S. Lewis. It warns that if society stops believing in objective moral truth, humans will lose their free will and become puppets of their own technology. The Chao is the idea that certain values are naturally true everywhere in the world. Examples include courage, kindness, and respecting elders. It is like the golden rule: treat others how you want to be treated. Modern education often teaches people to reject these natural values. Instead, it teaches that feelings are just inside us rather than facts about the world. Lewis called these people men without chests. This means they have a brain, intellect, and a stomach, desires, but no heart or spirit, affections, to connect the two. Society tries to use science and technology to conquer nature. But man's power over nature really just becomes some people controlling other people, using nature as a tool. The leaders who control the future, conditioners, must give up their own human souls and moral beliefs to gain this ultimate power. If leaders abandon natural values, they cannot make rational choices. They are controlled only by their own random biological instincts. Humanity as a whole loses its freedom, its soul, and its unique purpose. We become nothing more than raw material to be cut into new shapes. We think we are making progress by conquering the world through science. But by destroying our morality, we actually destroy ourselves. Nature ends up conquering humanity because humanity has already given up the very things that make us human. Plato's Republic breeds rulers, state-controlled reproduction, collective child-rearing, and elimination of the weak for perfection. The city becomes a machine, sacrificing humanity for control. State-sanctioned eugenics refers to government policies designed to improve the genetic quality of the human population. Historically, this involved forced sterilizations, marriage restrictions, and institutionalization targeting the poor, minorities, and disabled. Today, coercive reproductive control laws still exist in many states. Eugenics stems from a Greek word meaning well-born. It relies on the false belief that human traits like intelligence, poverty, and criminality are entirely genetic. Positive eugenics, policies that encourage fit citizens to have more children, such as hosting fitter family contests at state fairs. Negative eugenics, policies meant to stop unfit citizens from reproducing, such as forced sterilization and marriage bans. 1907, Indiana became the first state to pass a mandatory sterilization law. 27. The US Supreme Court ruled in Buck v. Bell that states could legally force the sterilization of people deemed feeble-minded. Chief Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes infamously justified this by stating, "3 generations of imbeciles are enough." 1930s. American eugenic laws directly inspired Nazi Germany's 1933 law for the prevention of offspring with hereditary diseases. 1970s, state-sanctioned programs shifted toward low-income women and women of color. In the American South, this was widely referred to as a Mississippi appendectomy. Eugenic programs targeted specific groups to eliminate them from the gene pool. The disabled, people with physical, mental, or psychiatric disabilities. Minorities, Black, Indigenous, and Latinx populations. The vulnerable, poor whites, orphans, and criminals. Impact 60,000. The estimated number of Americans who were permanently sterilized under state laws. 32. The number of US states that adopted explicit eugenics laws during the 20th century. North Carolina was one of the last states to officially end its program, doing so in 1974. Plato's education isn't enlightenment. It's programming, molding children into obedient citizens, suppressing curiosity and individuality. Education becomes the final lock on the prison of the Republic. Education as indoctrination happens when schools force students to accept one specific set of beliefs as the absolute truth. Instead of teaching people how to think, it tells them what to think. The goal is to create followers rather than free thinkers. Indoctrination requires students to memorize one correct answer, punishes different opinions, and discourages questioning. According to education experts, indoctrination usually includes 4 main methods. Content, teaching opinions or beliefs as if they are hard, proven facts. Methods, using fear, peer pressure, or emotional tricks to make students agree. Intent, the teacher or system actively wants to shape the student's personal beliefs. Outcome: the student cannot or will not change their mind, even if new facts are shown to them. When a country forces schools to teach a version of history that only highlights its successes and ignores its mistakes to build blind patriotism, critics call it propaganda. If a teacher tells students their political or social beliefs are the only correct ones and shames anyone who disagrees, this crosses into ideological conditioning. A good way to measure if teaching is educational or indoctrinating is to use Bloom's taxonomy, a guide that measures how deeply a student thinks. Schools teach obedience. Rows, bells and routines shape students into compliant citizens, discouraging independent thought. Plato's cave is now digital. Screens shape our desires, trap us in echo chambers and sell our attention. The digital cave is both a prison and a marketplace for the soul. Plato's allegory of the cave describes prisoners chained in a dark cave, watching flat shadows. They think the shadows are real. Today, modern media and social media act as this shadow play. Algorithms, news and screens project distorted, incomplete versions of reality that shape how we think and act. In Plato's story, people live in a dark cave. A fire burns behind them. Between the prisoners and the fire, puppeteers hold up cut-out figures. The fire projects the shadows of these figures onto a flat wall. Because the prisoners have never seen the real world, they believe these shadows are absolute truth. Plato imagined a society working in perfect harmony, each part serving the whole. To Plato, justice is not about following strict laws. It means social harmony. Harmony happens when every person does the job they do best. Think of it like an orchestra. Every instrument must play its specific part for the music to sound beautiful. If a flute tries to play the tuba's part, it creates noise. Plato thought social harmony does not happen by accident. It must be built. Strict education. The state teaches children based on their natural skills. Assigned roles, people learn only what they need for their specific job. No greed. Rulers and soldiers cannot own money or private homes. This keeps them from being selfish. Today, social media enforces conformity through likes, shares, and public shaming, what we call cancel culture. Dissenters fall silent, creating an illusion of consensus. This engineered harmony keeps society peaceful on the surface, but masks deep tensions beneath. In the end, it's a powerful tool for control, one Plato would have endorsed. Plato's ship of state isn't just about elite rule, it's a theory of control. The Greek word for a ship's pilot gives us cybernetics, the science of feedback and steering. Plato saw the state as a ship, guided by a philosopher-king who makes constant, subtle adjustments to keep on course. The passengers, ordinary people, don't notice the steering. Control is so subtle it feels like freedom. This ancient idea inspired modern cybernetics, systems that guide us, often without us ever realizing. Plato's allegory of the cave shows how we mistake shadows for reality. Prisoners, chained since birth, see only flickering images on a wall, believing them to be the whole truth. When one escapes, he's blinded by the sun, but slowly discovers a richer world outside. Returning to free the others, he's mocked and rejected. The prisoners love their chains, mistaking darkness for safety. The burden of knowing is the mental and emotional weight that comes with being aware of a difficult truth. Once you understand a problem or see a hidden pattern, you can no longer ignore it. This awareness often leads to anxiety, isolation, and a responsibility to act. Knowing how the world works, like an injustice or environmental issue, makes it hard to turn a blind eye. You feel an obligation to fix the problem. The more you understand, the more complicated a problem seems. This makes it hard to make simple decisions because you overthink every possible outcome. When you see a deeper reality, it is hard to relate to others who live in a simpler, less aware state. This can cause loneliness. In economics, the burden of knowledge refers to how hard it is to innovate today. Because humans have learned so much, a new scientist has to study for decades just to reach the baseline of current human knowledge before they can invent something new. Knowing a secret about a friend can be a burden. You must carry the truth without telling anyone, which creates emotional stress. If you believe you're the pilot of your own ship, you feel empowered. Your choices steer your fate. But if you think outside forces control your life, you drift, feeling helpless. The genius of control is letting you believe you're the pilot, while someone else commands the wind and sea. Plato's vision of perfect self-control demands we dam our emotions, holding them back with sheer will and reason. But this creates immense mental pressure beneath the surface. Eventually, the dam cracks and suppressed feelings flood out, causing far more harm than the original emotions ever could. Over-control is the extreme suppression of your emotions and natural behaviors. While it can help you get things done, it causes serious mental damage over time. The mental costs include severe exhaustion, deep loneliness, extreme rigid thinking, and hidden anxiety. You use a lot of mental energy to hide your feelings. This creates constant tension. Think of your brain like a computer with 50 apps open at once. The battery drains fast and the system slows down. You may avoid showing your true feelings because you think it makes you look weak. Because of this, others cannot connect with the real you. You end up alone even when you're around friends. You see things as only right or wrong. You might rely on strict rules to get through life. When things do not go exactly as planned, you become highly stressed. You may try to plan for every bad thing that could happen. Over-control often comes from fear and a need for certainty. This leaves you worrying constantly under the surface. Imagine a dark city street, rain falling. A crowd gathers, angry, loud, unpredictable. This was Plato's nightmare, the crowd as a many-headed beast, chaos waiting for a spark. In Athens, Plato saw the masses swayed by emotion, condemning Socrates to death. For Plato, the crowd couldn't be trusted. His answer? Control, not freedom. In the Republic, society is a machine, each person a cog working in harmony. True freedom, he argued, was an illusion. Only order could save society. Plato's vision? A society safe from the mob, but at the cost of freedom. Plato's distrust of democracy is captured in his ship of state story. Picture a ship. The captain is the people, well-meaning but unskilled. The sailors, politicians, fight for control, ignoring the true navigator, the philosopher. The philosopher knows the stars, but the sailors mock him and seize the wheel. The result? The ship sails into disaster. For Plato, democracy is chaos, rule by the loudest, not the wisest. Governing, he argued, is a craft, not a popularity contest. You wouldn't let a crowd perform surgery, so why let them run a state? Only philosopher-kings trained in wisdom should rule. Democracy, Plato believed, drowns reason in noise and elevates charisma over competence. The ship of state is a warning popular opinion can steer society into storms. Expertise, not majority rule, should guide the state. For Plato, the health of a nation is too precious to leave to chance. Democracy's flaw? It chooses leaders for the wrong reasons. And so the ship is doomed, not by the storm, but by its own crew. How do you make people accept a system where most have no power? Plato's answer: tell them a noble lie. The myth: everyone is born from the earth, but with different metals in their souls. Gold for rulers, silver for soldiers, bronze and iron for workers. This story makes social hierarchy feel natural, even divine. The noble lie kills ambition and keeps order. It's mental conditioning on a grand scale, unity but at the cost of truth and freedom. Plato's ideas on crowd control still shape our world. Look at malls, airports, stadiums. Their design guides crowds, preventing chaos. This is Plato's philosophy in concrete and glass passive control, invisible guidance. Modern crowd psychology echoes his fears. Groupthink, panic, the need for expert direction. Emergency planners act as philosopher-kings, issuing clear commands in crisis. Even Plato's later idea, laws with persuasive preambles, lives on in public health campaigns. The state now persuades as well as commands, teaching citizens for the common good. But Plato's warning remains. Crowds can be dangerous, and unchecked, they breed chaos. The solutions, control, manipulation, loss of choice, are equally unsettling. We live in tension between freedom and order, individual will and group safety. Plato's blueprint is a chilling reminder. Perfect safety demands a price. The question lingers: how much of our own mind are we willing to surrender? Plato's ghost still haunts the machinery of crowd control. Plato saw it as the battle between a person's emotions and their reason. Plato believed we try to avoid this pain by clinging to false beliefs, a form of cognitive dissonance. Have you ever caught yourself doing something you know is wrong? Maybe lighting up a cigarette after swearing you'd quit, or eating that extra slice of pizza when you're on a health kick, and then suddenly finding a way to justify it. That uncomfortable feeling in your gut? That's cognitive dissonance at work. Cognitive dissonance is a fancy term for the mental discomfort you feel when your actions, beliefs, or attitudes clash. It's like having two radio stations playing in your head at the same time. Total chaos. Your brain craves harmony, so this inner conflict creates real tension. And trust me, we'll do almost anything to fix it. This idea isn't new. Back in 1957, social psychologist Leon Festinger dropped a bombshell in his book, A Theory of Cognitive Dissonance. He said that when our beliefs and actions are out of sync, our minds scramble to reduce that tension, kind of like hitting mute on one of those radio stations. Let's break it down with an example. Imagine you consider yourself an animal lover, but you eat meat. Or you know smoking is bad, but you keep lighting up anyway. That uneasy feeling? Pure cognitive dissonance. So how do we deal with it? Usually we have three options. 1. Change our behavior, like finally quitting smoking or cutting meat from your diet. 2. Change our beliefs. Maybe convincing yourself that the dangers of smoking are overblown, or that humans are meant to eat meat. Or 3. Justify our actions, telling yourself you only smoke to relax, or your diet is balanced enough. Here's the wild part. We'll go to great lengths to protect our self-image. Sometimes we even ignore facts that don't fit our narrative. That's why you see people clinging to bad habits or doubling down on opinions, even when the evidence is right in front of them. Cognitive dissonance isn't just a personal quirk. It's a powerful force shaping society. Marketers, politicians, even entire systems use it to keep us in line, making us think we're acting freely when, in reality, we're just smoothing over mental friction. The bigger the gap between what you believe and how you act, the bigger the discomfort and the harder you'll work to resolve it. Sometimes you'll change, sometimes you'll just put on blinders. The real trick? Start spotting those moments of dissonance in your own life. Ask yourself, am I living in harmony with my beliefs, or am I just finding clever ways to avoid the discomfort? For a deeper dive, check out the full overview on Very Well Mind, or read up on Britannica for the historical scoop. And next time you feel that mental itch, remember, it's just your brain asking for a little honesty. Let me pull back the velvet curtain. In his work, Timaeus, the ancient Greek philosopher Plato, explains that the universe began as raw, formless chaos. A divine craftsman, the demiurge, shaped this chaos into a beautiful, organized cosmos by using the perfect and eternal forms, ideals like truth, beauty, and justice, as his blueprint. The demiurge is not a creator from nothing. He is an architect. He took pre-existing disorderly matter and organized it because he is good and wanted the physical world to be as perfect as possible. The true reality consists of unchanging, perfect templates called forms. The demiurge looked at these forms to impose mathematical order, patterns and harmony onto the chaotic, shifting physical matter. Think of the pre-existing chaos like a giant pile of mixed-up jigsaw pieces. By itself, the pile is a mess, and you cannot see the picture. The demiurge acts like the person putting the puzzle together. He arranges the pieces according to a box-top picture, the forms, so that a clear, beautiful and useful image, the cosmos, emerges. Plato stated that there are two causes in the universe: reason, the mind of the demiurge, and necessity, the random, mechanical nature of physical matter. Order is created when reason persuades necessity to work together toward a good goal. You ever notice how, right when the world seems like it's spinning out of control, some polished suit steps up from the shadows, holding the solution? But whose chaos is it really? There's an old Latin motto, Ordo ab Chao, order from chaos. It's no secret. Elite bankers have been playing this game for centuries. The trick? Manufacturing or exploiting chaos, usually financial, to push through systems that the average person would never accept if things were calm and clear. Let's break down their playbook. Step 1. Expand control. Picture this: a sudden market crash, banks failing, your money in jeopardy. Panic spreads, people demand answers. In this state of fear, privacy gets tossed aside for a taste of security. You hand over your freedoms just to feel safe. Step 2. Implement centralized currencies. The crash becomes the perfect excuse for introducing central bank digital currencies, CBDCs. Now every dollar you spend is tracked, logged and analyzed. Total surveillance, total control. You want to buy something the system doesn't like? Too bad. They can freeze your funds with the click of a button. Step 3. Consolidate power. When chaos knocks prices down, who's got cash to spare? Not you, not me. It's the big players, the banks, the funds, the insiders, who scoop up everything for pennies. Assets, land, businesses all flow upwards, leaving a handful of people with the lion's share. But let's zoom in on what this does to your mind. Psychologists call it an order out of chaos event. When the world shifts, your brain flips out. It hates the unknown. Panic, confusion, stress. Your mind screams for old routines, but they're gone. That's when you're most vulnerable. Here's the kicker. Chaos isn't just destruction, it's a reset. If you hold out, your brain adapts. You start to see through the fog, find new ways to survive. But the elites, they want to rush you through this phase, trap you in a new box before you can build your own. The real magic happens at the edge of chaos, a space where things aren't totally out of control, but not locked down either. That's where systems thrive, where creativity happens, where real freedom exists. Don't mistake the darkness for hopelessness. Chaos, if you own it, is fertile ground. Recognize the mess, separate fact from fear, think different, and act one step at a time. Because at the end of the day, the biggest con isn't the chaos itself. It's the fake order they sell you after. Dig deeper and remember, the power to adapt is yours. The illusion of control promises perfection, but when the state claims a monopoly on good, all dissent becomes evil. Steering society toward a flawless end, it crushes the messy, creative nature that makes us human. In the end, a perfectly steered ship with no living souls aboard is just a ghost ship, a monument to control, not life. When steering becomes strangling is a metaphorical phrase used to describe what happens when tight, failing or seized steering shafts or U-joints restrict your vehicle's turning ability. It means the steering mechanism is literally binding, making the steering wheel choke or stiffen up instead of turning smoothly. Plato's vision wasn't just philosophy, it was a blueprint for total control. He designed a rigid class system enforced by the noble lie and controlled every aspect of life from birth to death. These ancient methods echo today as algorithms and media shape our desires and beliefs. The most perfect prison is built in the mind, where we not only accept our chains, but learn to love them. At the end of our Gothic journey, we face Plato's haunting question: is justice better than injustice? For Plato, justice is order, everyone in their place, no dissent, no chaos. But is this true justice or just the silence of a graveyard? The unchained question remains. Would you stay a happy prisoner in a perfect cave or risk everything for the painful, magnificent light of reality?